History Secrets.
In recent years, geopolitical videos and analyses have begun to circulate widely across the internet. Some of them make bold predictions about the future of the world order. Among these predictions, one in particular has drawn attention: the idea that a potential conflict between the United States and Iran could profoundly reshape the global balance. According to this interpretation, such a conflict would not be just a regional war. It would be a dispute with much broader impacts. A war of attrition, an economic war, a strategic war. Some analysts argue that Iran has prepared for decades to face external pressure, developing regional networks of allies, militias, armed groups, indirect combat strategies. Within this logic, instead of directly confronting a superior military power, the strategy would be to slowly weaken the opponent's economic and political infrastructure. Indirect attacks, pressure on energy routes, regional instability. One of the central areas of this dispute would be the Persian Gulf, a region through which a significant portion of global oil passes, and where several critical energy infrastructures are located. In this scenario, any disruption in energy routes could trigger chain reactions, increase in oil prices, pressure on financial markets, impacts on the global economy. But experts also highlight an important point. Determining who wins or loses a modern war can be extremely complex, especially when there is no direct territorial invasion. In traditional conflicts, defeat is usually defined by clear objectives: territorial conquest, fall of governments, formal surrender. But in contemporary conflicts, objectives can be much more fluid: destroy military capabilities, weaken opponents, reduce regional influence. In this context, success or failure depends on what goals were actually established, and whether those goals were achieved. For example, some modern military operations focus on limited objectives: neutralizing certain infrastructures, destroying specific arsenals, reducing the adversary's military capacity. When these objectives are achieved, the operation may be considered successful, even without deep political changes. But if more ambitious goals are set, such as regime change, the conflict can become much longer and more unpredictable. Another important factor is the technological evolution of conflicts: underground arsenals, tunnel networks, bases hidden in mountainous regions. These structures can make the complete neutralization of military systems more difficult. In addition, drones and medium-range missiles have become increasingly relevant in contemporary conflicts. These technologies allow relatively low-cost attacks against strategic targets. On the other hand, traditional military powers still possess significant advantages: air superiority, surveillance satellites, advanced intelligence systems. This combination creates a type of conflict that many analysts describe as a-technological attrition warfare, a confrontation in which each side tries to gradually destroy the operational capacity of the other. Within this logic, time becomes a crucial factor. Who can sustain operations longer? Who can maintain resources? Who can preserve alliances? Another important element in this type of war is the internal political dimension. Prolonged conflicts can generate internal pressure within the countries involved: economic costs, social impacts, political debates. For this reason, many contemporary conflicts end not only through clear military victories, but through political decisions, changes in strategy, redefinition of objectives. Ultimately, modern wars rarely produce simple conclusions. They produce temporary balances, unstable agreements, new strategic disputes, Perhaps this is why absolute predictions about conflict outcomes tend to be so difficult. Geopolitics rarely follows predictable scripts. What seems inevitable at one moment can quickly change when new variables come into play. Technology, alliances, internal changes. And at the center of all these dynamics remains a constant reality of history. The global balance of power is always in transformation. When observing a modern conflict closely, a fundamental question emerges. What does it really mean to win a war? For much of history, the answer seemed relatively simple. An army invades a territory, defeats the opponent, captures cities, and imposes a new government. But many contemporary conflicts no longer follow this model. Instead of direct invasions, we see limited operations, strategic bombings, attacks on military infrastructure, economic pressure. Under these circumstances, the outcome of war depends much more on the objectives established. If a country defines its goal as destroying certain military capabilities of the opponent, then the success of the operation will be measured by that criterion. For example, neutralizing missile systems, reducing military infrastructure, destroying strategic installations. These can be specific operational objectives. More ambitious goals, such as overthrowing a government or completely transforming a political system, are usually much more difficult to achieve and often require prolonged military occupation. For this reason, many countries today avoid sending large contingents of ground troops into prolonged conflicts. This type of operation can generate high human and political costs. Instead, some modern strategies prioritize air superiority, control of airspace, constant monitoring of enemy territory. When a country manages to control another's airspace, it gains a significant advantage. It can monitor military movements, detect missile launchers, identify logistical activities. This creates a type of conflict based on gradual attrition. Each side tries to reduce the other's military capacity over time. In the case of Iran, for example, part of its military infrastructure was built in underground facilities, bunkers, tunnels, complexes hidden in mountainous regions. These structures make direct attacks more difficult, but they can also present logistical limitations. Equipment must eventually leave these facilities to be used, and at that moment, they may become vulnerable. This type of dynamic turns the conflict into a race against time. Each side tries to destroy the opponent's stock of military resources before its own arsenal is depleted. Another important factor is the complexity of the Iranian nuclear program. Unlike some concentrated military installations, this program is spread across different locations, some of them deeply buried or protected. This makes military operations more difficult. It requires constant surveillance, detailed intelligence, and repeated operations over time. In addition, contemporary conflicts often include indirect strategies, internal political pressure, support for regional groups, attempts to weaken adversarial governments through unconventional means. These strategies may include support for internal political groups, encouragement of regional movements, or attempts to generate instability within the opposing country. This type of approach shows how modern wars have become more complex. They involve military, political, economic, and social dimensions at the same time. For this reason, the final outcome of a conflict rarely depends only on direct military victories. It also depends on each country's ability to sustain pressure over time. Economic capacity, internal political stability, international support. All these factors influence the outcome. That is why many conflicts end not with absolute victories, but with new temporary balances, agreements, ceasefires, strategic shifts. In the end, modern wars often redefine the balance of power without necessarily producing clear winners. And perhaps this is one of the most striking characteristics of the contemporary international system: conflicts that rarely end definitively, but that continue to slowly shape the global order. Throughout history, civilizations have risen, disappeared, and left clues scattered through time. Some of these clues have been discovered, others are still waiting to be revealed. And in the next documentary, we will explore one of these mysteries. This is Histoire Secrets. Subscribe and continue exploring history with us, because some secrets of history are still waiting to be revealed.